Well, good morning. And as I said, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate you making some time to be with us this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you are. And welcome to the user group, first one for 2023. Actually, we held our session for the Australian and Asia Pac clients yesterday. So glad to have you join us today. So targeted personalization, our top 3 tips to help you design a richer customer experience. So we'll be focusing largely on segmentation and looking at personalization, and then we're going to dive into sort of 3 suggestions as to how you can actually make that happen and design that richer CX. So let's dive in. Introduce myself. My name is Derek Bell. I'm your host today and the Director of Marketing and Customer Success at Marketing Cube. Adrian, our CEO and co-founder, and Sean Camello is one of our account directors. They're not actually on the call today, but FYI, so you get an idea of the broader members of the team. So for those who have joined us regularly, you'll know that we use Zoom to record our webinars, and the replays are available on our blog. That's usually the question most people want to know is, where are the replays? So the replays will come. We'll send you an email, but you will find a library of replays on our blog as well. So please feel free to access those. If you do have any questions through the Q&A, please go ahead and ask those. Happy to answer those, and just make sure you're aware they are visible to everybody. Point being that you can upvote some of those questions should you want to. If you do want to ask a private question, please feel free to use the chat function to do that, because only I see that one. Okay, so what's our plan for the next 55 minutes? So first of all, we had quite a few questions submitted, so we want to cover those off for you, and then we'll dive into delivering greater personalization, targeting buyers based on observed behavior, increasing your buyer conversion rates. That's where we're going to show you some examples or give you some ideas for maybe modifying or adjusting some of the campaigns you're running currently, and also give you a bit of an update on the Eloqua release for 2023. So 23A is live now for the vast majority of clients. I think there's still a few pods that will actually go this weekend to release 23A. And then Q&A. But as usual, Q&A is available throughout the whole session. So please feel free to ask questions whenever you want to. Okay, so we had a question from Laurie, who is a Marcom manager. And she asked the question, can we pre-populate a checkbox on an OCC, which is Oracle Commerce Cloud, web form, specifically not an Eloqua form, if the contact is globally subscribed? So Laurie, we've been digging in order to get a response to this, and I don't have a response specifically for you today with 100% confidence. So we're still working with Oracle to get a clarity on that particular scenario. But talking to our tech team, fundamentally, it's something that should be doable. So if the OCC is currently integrated to Eloqua, then there's every likelihood that, yes, we can do it. There'd be a range of different ways on how to do that, but I probably would be speaking out of school with that before I can get a little bit more information and come back to you. So please understand, we will come back to you on that, get a response for you, but I just don't have a definitive answer for you today. But thank you for submitting that particular question. And thanks for the exchange on LinkedIn. That certainly helped as well. So I appreciate that. Then Laura from Italy, who's a marketing campaign manager. Ciao, Laura, if you're on the line today. Her question was in relation to duplicates in Salesforce, contacts and leads with the same email, a scenario many of us are used to. You're welcome, Laurie. Thank you. Is there a way to clean this data? Thanks. Yeah, okay. So how does Eloqua manage it and what happens during the sync? Now, every integration configuration can be unique, so I need to sort of lay that out first. However, fundamentally, what generally happens, and this would be the experience with certainly the clients that we work with, we fundamentally work on a last or sort of most recent modification. So if the scenario is you've got 4 contacts or 2 leads, 2 contacts, all with the same email address sitting in the CRM, sadly, a reasonably normal occurrence, but of course only one of them comes into Eloqua because we know the email is in fact the unique ID within Eloqua. So last modified is the one that would apply. So let's play that out. So we look at contact A in this example in Salesforce, and somebody makes a modification to their job title. Okay. That information, being the most recent, will flow through into Eloqua. And then as the marketer, should you choose to take that job title and field merge it into a communication of some sort, it's the most recently modified one that would appear. Now, in the course of you running your campaign, you may have 2 or 3 emails, and maybe the third email, you repeat the process. But if we now go back to the CRM and perhaps contact B with the same email address, maybe the person got a promotion, well done, and their job title changes. Okay, so that now becomes the most recently modified. And so that information will flow through. It'll update the contact in Eloqua, and that information, the new information, is what would merge into the email. So the short answer to the question is typically it's the most recently modified. And logic implies that that's probably exactly what you want. If that's not what you want, well, that becomes a little bit more complex, and that's certainly something that we can talk to you about if that's certainly the case, Laura. So thank you for submitting that question. Next question. We had a couple of questions from some of the Asia Pac folks as well, and I thought they were interesting questions, so I thought I'd throw a couple of them in as well. This is from James. James is an e-commerce executive based here in Australia, and James is actually using Oracle NetSuite integrated to Eloqua. Their audience, they're primarily dealing with, well, it's actually really mixed. It's very traditional B2C, but there's also B2B. And so what he's asking here really, if we take a step back, is very ERP financial type of information that would be needed. And the other qualifying point would be, is this information needed at an account level or at a contact level? So if you're operating NetSuite, then the answer is yes. I'm sure we can absolutely do this. It would just be a matter of a few more qualifying questions to understand exactly what we need, and then the idea of bringing that into Eloqua. Now, something that we've done with financial services clients is they want to do a sort of similar thing, let's say credit card clients, and they want to sort of get an idea of spend and those sorts of things. So they decided very early that in reality, they didn't need the actual dollars coming into Eloqua. They weren't looking at a blow-by-blow transaction of, purchasing at a retail store here and a hardware store there and a furniture store, et cetera. They didn't need that detail. It really came down to the dollars. And then in reality, were never going to be in a position to want to put the dollars into an email and say, hey, congratulations, you spent $6,000 this month on your credit card. That's not what they wanted. So what they did is they came up with a concept of sort of gold, silver, bronze, and maybe even platinum, gold, silver, bronze, and basically just created thresholds. And so from an Eloqua point of view, what came into Eloqua, it was generated from the ERP platform, but came into Eloqua was a ranking of platinum, gold, silver, bronze. And so then the marketer was able to adjust their communications based on those different levels. And that information was updated regularly, so comms would go out accordingly and be really up to date. So taking a step back, there are different ways of bringing the data in, and sometimes you don't necessarily need to bring in the specific data. We could potentially manipulate it in the source system and then just bring through a very high level view of what's really needed for the marketer to run their particular campaigns. So hopefully that provides some insight as to what's possible. Look, a really good question here from Selena, and I think this is a question that has been niggling at a few people. That QR code, by the way, is linked to a blog post which talks more to this point. So you may want to scan that on your phone if you've got it handy. So her question fundamentally is, with the whole iOS privacy introduction, should we be ignoring or not using the personalization triggers based on email opens and clicks? And the answer is absolutely. Well, let me not do a double negative. The answer is no to that question, because yes, you can absolutely rely on the information that's sitting within Eloqua. So when Eloqua now asks the question, did the person open the email or did they click on the email? Any auto opens and auto clicks are excluded from that scenario. So you can, with confidence, when creating a segment, when applying the different elements on the campaign canvas or in a shared filter, etc., and you ask those questions, you're only going to have the responses of people who have actually opened and have actually clicked. Auto opens and auto clicks are basically treated as no, they didn't do anything. So so you can relax on that point and you can trust the platform to do what it is that you need to do. And another question that came in from Kath, and this was referring to the campaign fields. They're using Yes, they're using Salesforce CRM at this particular organization and really just trying to understand the value of campaign fields. So our answer to this question was absolutely yes. Campaign fields are a great tool. Information can flow from Eloqua back to the campaign object within Salesforce. At a very basic level, it can be dollars that you may want to attribute, which can help with ROI reporting. It also largely depends on where the audience is that you want to have access to the reporting. So if it's people outside of marketing, then it probably makes more sense to have that data sitting in Salesforce or in the CRM platform to present the different types of reporting that are available. The only challenge you've got from an Eloqua point of view is they need to have an Eloqua license and access to Eloqua. You can, of course, set up an agent within Eloqua Insight and automate the delivery of PDFs or Excel files to non-users of the platform, but it all depends. Usually people want pretty dashboards and they just want people to have easy access to them. And in that particular scenario, that's where those campaign fields can become quite beneficial. So yeah, our answer to that question was yes. In relation to her team, hate having to do more steps. Well, it's just the reality. If you want the reporting, well, it's going to take a few more steps to do that because you've got to put the information in and obviously make some enhancements to the integration. So no two ways of getting around that one. All right, let's jump in. How to use observable buyer behavior mixed with buyer stages to deliver greater personalization. Absolutely. Let's jump in and have a closer look. So in the beginning, is digital body language. And so as a digital marketer, that's your nirvana. Okay, that's the place you go to. That's the information that you have available to help you drive the different decisions that you may want to do. How do we go about doing that? Well, in relation to linking it to buyer stages, you need to have clarity about your buyer stages. We need to figure that out first before we can match the two together. So I wanted to throw an example at you, and this is really just one possible journey. These can become more complex or less complex. But originally, or to start with, people begin as a suspect. And in our world as digital marketers, they're really just an IP address. And that's once they've touched one of our assets. So as far as Eloqua is concerned, when people visit your website, if they're unknown to Eloqua, Eloqua still tracks it. But at that point, they're just an IP address. That's it. There's nothing else. You can't see that information necessarily within Eloqua. It's being stored in the background. And it's not until that individual at some point either completes a form to disclose information about who they are, or maybe they've come into the CRM and then synced into Eloqua. And as a result of that, you've then sent them an email. So as soon as they open that email, and specifically when the images download in that email, that's when the cookies are dropped onto their device. Same with the form submission. That's when the cookies are dropped. So once those cookies are on the person's platform, or sorry, on their hardware, that's when you're able to begin understanding their digital body language, including website visits, all of their email behavior, form submissions, landing page engagement, those sorts of things. So they're now an Eloqua contact, and at some point things will change and they become a lead. Okay, so if from a lead construct, this is more of a CRM type of scenario, as I'm sure you're aware, and hopefully as they progress through a process, they would become a contact within the CRM, and then eventually, hopefully, obviously, a client as well. And so that's just a really fundamental description, as it's very linear. I know, and I know, many buying processes are far from linear, but we need to have some sort of basic understanding of that in order to really deliver the tailored experience that we're trying to do, and that's part of the objective of what we're talking about today. So, how do you take care of that as a marketer? Well, fundamentally, it's advertising. You probably start at the front end, whether it's television, magazines, newspapers, Google, Facebook, social, LinkedIn, all those sorts of different places. All of those points of advertising typically are to drive an individual to fill in a form at some point to disclose information about themselves so you can get a better understanding of who they are. And then it becomes a bit of a content mapping exercise or content planning exercise to work out at what point, at what stage is the best type of content that we should be presenting to people. And so along the way, as you present these different things and put forms in place, then let's make sure we're taking advantage of Eloqua's progressive profiling. So let's not just simply ask the same questions that we always ask. If we're running webinars, let's not just simply ask the same questions we always ask. let's make sure that we're utilizing progressive profiling. Let's pull back on sort of the what I call the nonsense questions. I probably shouldn't say it in the context of giving a webinar, but for instance, I mean, do you really need to rate the webinar presenter? Really? I mean, that doesn't really give any commercial value to you as a business. It's just a smiley sheet at the end of the day. People generally tend to just want to be nice and say nice things. That's great. However, far more valuable to you is commercial questions or questions that can imply intent in relation to that particular buyer. So use those opportunities and use Eloqua's progressive profiling to make sure you're not asking the same questions over and over again. So eventually they'll become a client, and cross-sell, upsell is probably what you're trying to achieve. And throughout that whole process, there are different tools that Eloqua can give you to make that process a bit easier. And certainly the subscriptions or email groups is a really good way to do that. You may also want to think about blending in a preference center. And in order for a person to see your preference center for the first time, when they click on unsubscribe because they're just annoyed with the volume of emails, or maybe they're just not relevant, how about we bring that preference center a little bit earlier in the process? So as soon as they come into your database, or really quickly in the first week or two of them being a known contact within your platform, how about reaching out then when the interest is high and hopefully you've delivered some value with whatever it was that they submitted a form for, whether it was thought leadership or content of some sort. Let's strike while the iron's hot, so to speak, and let's ask them early. What would they like to hear about? Tell them, ask a little bit about them, try and understand who they are and their profile, and then help them work their way through the journey. Hopefully, you'll notice that at various communications you've had from us, we invite you to do that. We invite you to visit our preference center. Tell us a little bit about you, what interests you, any subscriptions particularly that you'd like to have a look at, so that we can get a better idea about who you are and what you're interested in, and how we can potentially help you in that process. Now, as I said, this is a one possible journey. It's not the nirvana state. It's just really an indication, essentially. But that concept of mapping and personas and buyer journey and all that kind of stuff, our team in the strategic services area help with this. So if there's a conversation you'd like to have that potentially could look at alleviating some of the stress in that area and adding some smarts to it and really helping you develop a better process for engagement with your customers or your prospects, then please reach out to us. We'd love to have a chat with you about that. And so the other key message in that point is first-party data. And we know Google, bless them, sort of keep moving the goalposts. They keep pushing dates out as to when they're going to make their changes. And that's a big part of why the emphasis on first-party data, that we're going to begin to lose some ability through advertising in digital space that is going to cause us a little bit of, if you do a lot of it today, I'm sure you're keenly aware. If you don't do a lot of that type of advertising today, then it's maybe not as front of mind. Regardless, a goal that we should all have for 2023 is to really enhance that first-party data. And one of the ways that you can do that really easily is through any of your forms that you're presenting to people, whether it's downloading content, thought leadership, providing feedback from events, registering for events, webinars, in-person events, roadshows, whatever they are. Let's use those as opportunities to present a few more questions. I'm not suggesting you make a crazy long form. I'm suggesting you come up with probably your top 15 or 20 profile questions or intent questions that you really need to understand and have on board so that you can start to bring that data inside and then start to think about the questions you want to ask in the context of, well, what is that going to enable me to do? And how is this going to help me deliver better qualified leads to whoever in your organization is responsible for sales and has a sales target? So specific website page visits are great tools to do that. We should do a lot more segmenting and understanding who's looking at which pages on our website. And Eloqua's page tagging construct is a great tool to help you group those pages together instead of doing it URL by URL. So that can be really helpful. First-party data captured in forms. Hopefully I've covered that with enough emphasis. But then also looking at specific campaign engagement. So you'll have multiple types of campaigns, whether they're product-centric or service-centric. Maybe they're by geography to different types of audiences. Some of them will just be newsletters. Some of them will be product launches, etc. Some of them will be higher value products or services, and some may be lower value products or services. Whatever they are, use them to measure engagement and find the people who are more heavily engaged, and use that as the audience for the next campaign as you start to move through a process. All right. So how to target buyers based on observed behavior. So we've looked at kind of why it's important, and this couple of scenarios around why we should be doing it, but how do we do that in Eloqua? Okay, great question. The fundamental way that we do that is really using segments. So Eloqua's segmentation capability, I think you'll agree, if you're a good user, or not a good user, that's not the right term, a frequent user of Eloqua and frequent user of segments, the segmentation capabilities is pretty extraordinary. And so your ability to mix not just profile information, but also digital body language. So that's all of the, did they open emails? Did they visit the website? Did they fill in forms? Did they engage with the campaign? And so while it's also all the positives, there's also the negatives. So they have not opened emails, that have not visited the website. And then, of course, you can play with timeframes. And those timeframes are important depending on your buyer journey and on the products or services that you sell. I think of some of our university clients in Australia, the notion of working out which university you want to go to and which course you want to do. I mean, you're probably 14, 15, 16 years old when that really begins, and you're not going to be, well, at least in this country, you're not going to be 18, about 18 when you enter university. So that's a long buying period, okay? A shorter buying period might be, from a finance point of view, could be a home loan. The home loan experience could be 3-6 months. It could be shorter, but it's still a very high value exercise. Buying property is another good example. For some people, it can happen very quickly, but it can typically be a longer, more protracted buying cycle. So that time frame that you want to work with can be really quite valuable as well. The ability to identify that personalization and some of the specific tools that you've got available to you from within Eloqua, certainly segments, that same logic applies to shared filters. So all of the filtering criteria that you use in segments is available to you in a shared filter as well. And then lead scoring. So if you have a lead scoring model up and running, then the lead score can also be used from a segmentation point of view to identify those more highly engaged and better profile fit type of prospects that you want to include as well. So if you do have a lead scoring model running, don't forget to use it in your segmentation capability. To give you an idea, I mean, it's a really basic example, but at Marketing Cube, we look at our client base, and it's, from an individual human point of view, there are probably over 1,000 plus customers. That is individual humans, not accounts, but individual humans. And those individual humans engage with us in a whole range of different ways. And so we actually have a lead score model, which is more, or is better defined probably as an engagement score. And so when it comes to, we're closed over the Easter break, or we're closed at Christmas, or the office will be closed for this public holiday, etc., we don't just do a carte blanche email out to all customers. We typically hit the senior executives, and then we use the engagement score to notify those people who are more highly engaged with us. So we figure, look, everybody's taking the same public holiday, at least generally speaking within Australia, it's much the same. Occasionally there are state-based holidays, but they're all taking the same holiday anyway. We really don't need to tell them. They know that we're going to be closed. But as a courtesy, we like to let those who are more engaged with us know. So this is one very basic example where lead scoring can be helpful from a non-traditional lead generation type of exercise. All right, so segments is your audience builder. Now, segments are created using 5 different fundamental tools. So first one is you have a range of filters that you can apply based on profile or engagement. Okay, so give me everybody who is in the state of Texas, for instance, and has opened at least 5 emails within the last 6 months. So that's a mix of profile information and engagement information. Second one, you can add individual contacts. And this sometimes can be really helpful because it doesn't matter how many filters you apply. Jenny from Alabama is just never showing up. in the audience, and you know that Phil really needs her in that segment and in that campaign, so that's fine. You can find any individual contact within the platform, and you can add an individual contact to your segment. Third one. Now, you can upload a list using Excel, and hopefully this is not an everyday occurrence. If you're integrated with a CRM platform, there are a whole range of reasons. Let's talk about security and personally identifiable information floating around on email accounts and thumb drives and et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole range of reasons as to why it's not a good idea. However, you may, from time to time, have the need to do it. So absolutely, of course, uploading Excel is nice. You don't have to worry about CSV files. You can just upload Excel. So it's helpful. All of the filter criteria from point number one are also available in your shared filter. So you can use a shared filter in the context of a segment. Now, why would you do that? Think of a shared filter in the context of a segment as almost like a, well, let me put it this way. If you're building a segment and you're regularly putting in a whole set of filters with and, or, and grouping and so on and so forth, instead of doing that over and over again every single time, go and create it once in a shared filter. And then as you build your segment, you can just simply drag in the shared filter. It's almost like a shortcut, essentially, instead of you manually producing it every single time. But that same shared filter can be used on the campaign canvas as well. So there's a few applications for it. That's 4. The 5th one is you can also add a shared list. Now, if you're a big user of shared lists, this can be really quite helpful. And I often find generally when I add a shared list, it's often more so as an exclusion than an inclusion. For example, behind all of our forms for every piece of thought leadership that we might offer people, people get dropped into a shared list. So then down the track, if I'm wanting to send out a specific campaign to invite people to access that particular piece of content, I just want to make sure I don't send it to people who have already accessed it. And so I would use my shared list as an exclusion in that particular example. But yeah, you've got a whole range of reasons as to why you might use shared lists as well. Okay. Let's look at the data. And so this point, and if you've attended the user group regularly, you probably are a little bit like, here Derek goes again, but that's okay. Let's go again. So the point I make here is that you can really understand so much more about your audience if you just take a moment to click on that View Contacts button in the top right-hand corner of your segmentation screen within Eloqua and have a look at the humans that make up the list. It can also be really helpful if you're wanting to validate that the filters that you have applied are in fact doing what you want them to do, especially when you start to play with or and grouping or and, etc. You want to make sure that what you're filtering is in fact correct. And remember, when you look at those contacts, you can change the view as well. So sometimes having a view that is specific to what you're trying to do can be quite helpful as well. So blindly emailing lists is not taking advantage of the insight that you've got. So if you've just got these fixed lists, or maybe there's a source system and there's Excel behavior happening, etc., it's kind of a flat, dead list. It's not a live, dynamic segment, which is what you can have if you're using both profile and digital body language within Eloqua. Now, hopefully all of your segments will start from a template versus going to last month's and just doing a save as and dragging it over. If there's repetition in what you're doing, well, then let's make them templates. It's certainly good for larger teams, and it certainly gives more confidence to those who are new to the organization that they're doing the right thing and selecting the right audience. If they can start from a template, that makes life a lot easier. Now, in some ways, segments can also play a reporting role. I would never suggest to you that segmentation should be used for reporting. I'm talking more about you as a marketer in managing your audiences and your data and what you're trying to do. So I have a range of segments that will never go on a campaign canvas, but they're purely there to help me understand how data is changing, what the database is looking like, etc. So that's something for you to think about. All right, so I want to take you into Eloqua and quickly into segments and just show you an example. I was trying to think of what's a good example. I thought, well, let's play with a re-engagement campaign. So let's jump in and have a look at that. What I would have done, I would have come to segmentations within the contact area of Eloqua, and then I would have gone to create a segment. At Marketing Cube, what I've done is create what I call a base segment. A base segment start here, right? And so what this does, it means that all of the exclusions that I typically want to include in the vast majority of my segments are all done for me. They're all right there. So anyone flagged as inactive from the CRM, they're excluded. Any unsubscribes globally, they're excluded. Hard bounces excluded. We have a range of account types as well. So we generally exclude quite a few of those. We do work with a lot of Oracle sales team, as you would imagine. And we have some prospects sitting in our database who are flagged as basically ours, as in joint with Oracle and Eloqua. So, sorry, with Oracle and with Marketing Cube. And so from time to time, I need to exclude them, but not always. We have feedback from our CRM that if we have any leads that are marked as spam, we just want to ignore those. And this is an example of the shared filter I talked about. So here's your 5 different elements I talked about, the different ways you can build your segment. And so here's the shared filter. This is why I created it as a shared filter, because you can see there's so many options here. Essentially, what we're doing here is just excluding non-work related email domains from our communications. We don't mind people coming in and potentially accessing something and may choose to use Gmail, but they'll pretty much never hear from us again if that's what they choose to do. We do actually proactively reach out to anybody that has any of these domains. And we explain to them, hey, look, we're a business. We're in the B2B space. We don't want to harass you at your private personal accounts. We'd love to learn a little bit more about you and your business and what you're doing and maybe ways that we could potentially help. And then we invite them to simply update their email. And so we use a form to manage that for us, and it's all taken care of. And I looked the other day, actually, I was just doing some review for the new year. Campaign had, from memory, a 45% unique open rate, and then form conversions was around 30%. I think it was. It's certainly enough that makes it worthwhile. It's fully automated, obviously. I don't touch it. It just kind of does its magic in the back end. But this is one example of what you can do. Now, what I'm going to do is jump to, here's one I prepared earlier, which essentially is all of those points that I just showed you. And you see they're all marked there as exclusions. And remember, you can include or exclude depending on what you want to do there. But this is what I was playing with from an engagement point of view. Now, what I'm going to do is actually delete these and reproduce this so you can sort of see how we came to that. So the first one I focused on, considering this is a re-engagement campaign, was to look at those people who have not opened any email within the last 12 months. And so you can see there's a range of ways you can do that. And it puts that information in front of me. And the first secret I would give to you, or the tip I would give for you to help you really understand your audience, is to make sure when you add a filter, each time you add a new filter, hit save. The reason for that is you want to look at this number up here in the top left-hand corner of the screen. And if you add a whole bunch of filters and then hit save, you kind of have no idea as to how you got to that number. So let me show you what I mean. So not opened any email in the last 12 months. And let's say, for instance, I want to focus on people within specific regions. So within our instance of Marketing Cube, we have really strong quality data around where a person is, which country they're in. And this has been a long time coming. In a very, very past, well, what was it, probably 10 plus years ago, we were very Australia focused. We were very much, didn't really look beyond Australia. Of course, our friends in New Zealand, we kind of call them our cousins, they were included, etc. But we used to ask them which state they were in. And so that then started to become a bit silly, because we started to notice we had people coming in from Italy and France and the US and Canada and South America, etc. Like, okay, well, this isn't going to work. So do we really need to know state? Not really, from an Australian point of view, at least that is. So we decided to switch and move to country. And so we made that decision about 8 years ago. And so that now means in our database today, I can tell you with all confidence that probably 96 to 97% of the contacts sitting in our database have a country attached. And because they have a country attached, we can then actually have Eloqua do some smarts for us. So what we do is we've uploaded a table into Eloqua using data tools, I think it is. If you tell me you're in the United States, then we automatically populate our region field to say North America. If you tell me you're in Puerto Rico, I'm going to say that you're in the Caribbean. If you tell me you're in France, I'm going to say you're in EU. And if you tell me you're in the United Kingdom, I'm going to say Europe. Notice a slight difference there. That all has to do with GDPR. So that's how I'm able to come here with great confidence and say, well, okay, I want to identify North America. And let's say I want to also focus on EMEA. So let's take EU. Actually, yeah, not EMEA. Sorry, not EMEA, but EU. Now, I can hit save as that is, but I don't think that's going to work. And I think that's probably going to give me 0. Yeah, it does. Now, why is it giving me 0? It's giving me 0 because I haven't actually got the logic right. Okay, so the logic really needs to be an OR in this position. Now, I can hit save, but that's actually still not quite correct. Okay, now I can open this. I can click on view contacts, and funnily enough, I've got region right here. So I can see that, okay, yeah, I'm getting EU. Yep, okay. So that appears to be right, but actually it's not quite right, really. What I need to do is group these two and to adjust there it is down there. So click on one, hold down my shift key, click on the second, and then the group option becomes available. So that's now technically called a Boolean search, I think, if I get my vernacular right. So now what we're asking is give me all contacts who have not opened any email within the last 12 months, and they're in North America or they're in the EU. Now, if I hit save, will that make a difference? Let's have a look. It has made a slight difference. Okay. So now the difference between the 471 and the 238 is somewhere in this information here. So the difference there, those people in the middle there, basically are either marked as spam, maybe they have a Gmail account, they've hard bound, unsubscribed, whatever the case may be. So that's just one example of how we can really start to target in. Now, the other field that we use fairly extensively relates to job category. So I can either drill in, but given the size of that audience, maybe what I want to do is, first of all, look at those where job category is not blank. And then what I'll do is, let's have a look, 238. Hopefully that doesn't reduce massively. Yeah, that's reduced more than I would like it. But what I can then do is somewhere in here, maybe it's not this view. I thought I had job category, but there's job title. Yeah, there it is, job category. So I can sort that. And okay, so we can see a high level of sort of senior marketers, individual contributors. Okay, so here I can look at, okay, so probably what I'd want to do typically, being marketing Cuban and the people we talk to, there are probably some job categories there that I would probably exclude from my campaign. Okay. And so the vast majority being marketing manager, and then also some sales and service, etc. So when I say look at your data, this is what I mean. This is what I mean. I mean, coming in, having a look, first of all, making sure that your filters you're applying are in fact doing what you expect them to do. But also then in the context of your campaign, let's look at these people. I mean, the other one that you might want to play with is around industry. Is the industry information helpful? If you don't have the information and you're looking at it for a re-engagement campaign, and industry is a big emphasis for your organization as you move into 2023, maybe identify those less engaged people who you don't know their industry, and let's reach out to them and let's make that a priority number one in some sort of form where you can offer them content in exchange for a little bit of information. So we can start to proactively look at beefing up the quality of your first party data. That is your data sitting in Eloqua. I said to you that we would look at some tangible suggestions and why building adaptive and personalized always on campaigns will increase buyer conversion rates. So what we're trying to do here was think about some of the campaigns that most customers are running and looking at ways to potentially enhance those. So nurturing experiences and trying to create nurture campaigns that are a little bit unique. We had the very fortunate opportunity to have 2 of our clients this last year be awarded marquee awards. One organization was a pharmaceutical firm, and the other is a global travel provider or travel agency. And we were thrilled, obviously, with the result of that. The reason I bring that up is the travel client, you would imagine they've had a tough couple of years over the last 2 or 3 years. And they took an opportunity in that process to really start to drill into buyer behavior, really understanding personas, and really looking at creating some really unique nurture campaigns. So, in fact, what I'll probably try and do is share with you the case study that we did for one of those clients, and what that looked like. It was extraordinary over 12 different regions across, I think, something like 8 or 9 different time zones. I think it was 80 plus Zoom meetings held across about a 6 month period, etc., with a whole different bunch of stakeholders. The good thing about the whole COVID experience was people were at home. So it meant everybody could actually attend the Zoom meetings and everybody could get their input, which was quite a unique experience. Same thing, looking at your nurture campaigns. Are they static and flat? Are they current? When was the last time you actually went into that nurture campaign and looked at email by email by email, and checked every single link? Are they all still on brand? Are those links active? Is the messaging you're presenting really still relevant? Have there been changes in your industry or your environment that means that maybe the copy needs a little bit of a refresh? That's a first step. The next step is looking at trying to adjust the journey that people may be on. And there are a whole range of ways you can do that. And we're going to be talking more about that next month, specifically focusing on the campaign canvas and how you can take a lot of this data to actually adjust people's journeys as they move through these different campaigns. And of course, doing that based on engagement or the lack of engagement was that last point. Now, the other one is the in-person type of events, whether it's open days or on-campus days at universities, roadshows, whatever they may be. And I think we talked about this a little bit earlier. I said, let's not just ask the same questions every single time. Let's make sure we have smart ways of asking good questions that are really going to help better qualify the people that you're talking to. And think through that profile data that you need. Have a chat to sales, get them engaged, sit down with them, find out what they need. When they complain that this is a rubbish lead, why is it a rubbish lead? What's missing? What would you need to know? Ask those questions and get that into your forms so that you've got more of that information flowing through to the sales team. And of course, the application of dynamic content. Now you've got that a lot better, richer first-party data. Let's use that first-party data to drive dynamic content, which is going to help tailor both the visuals, but also the copy. You saw with those job categories that we had around C-level and director or vice president sort of level, through to more marketing manager in our world, and then individual contributors. So we use that quite extensively when it comes to events, because while we want everybody to attend, the reason a C-level executive would want to attend versus perhaps a marketing manager could be quite different. And so we try and pitch the event a little bit differently. Of course, it's still one event. We're not going to have multiples, but the motivation for those individuals to attend could be a little bit different. So use your dynamic content to do that. It means you've got to chat with whoever's writing your copy, make sure they're clear and understand the functionality that you have available, so they're not just providing you with flat, static sort of copy for these campaigns. Now, the personalized content around newsletters, we thought this one, we did a webinar, actually, I think it was during COVID, so maybe it was 20 or 21, that focused heavily on newsletters and looking at the personalization that can be done there. So if you think about a newsletter and you might, in fact, have 8 or 10 articles that are pertinent to the newsletter, but by using dynamic content, you could tailor that newsletter so perhaps no one individual actually sees any more than 4 articles that would go into that particular newsletter. And you may base those on industry, you may base them on job role. Are they a customer? Are they a prospect? For instance, there could be a whole range of different things that you might use to personalize. But dynamic content is a great way to make sure those newsletters hopefully are getting better cut through. And again, it comes back to the first party data that you've got available to play with. So tailor them, whether it's geography, industry, any other profile data. Think about how you can lift the engagement by tailoring them a little bit better. Alrighty, so what's new? The 23A release has arrived, and there's a range of bullet points here. This QR code, if you wanted to, if you not already subscribed, so Marketing Cube, we provide a subscription. It's purely by subscription only. And what it is, it's basically our view of the updates and kind of the important key things that are happening and providing you a little bit more of insight into what they are and how you can take advantage of them. So please feel free to scan that QR code and just fill in the form and you'll get our next copy of that. In fact, the current campaign will run for about 2.5 months. So even if you register today, or subscribe today, you'll still get the most recent one coming. First one, HTML markup for Insight. So what this essentially means is you now have the ability in Insight to kind of pretty up your reports. So we can add logos, we can add color, your corporate colors, your corporate palette, and making those insight reports a little bit more interesting and visually stimulating for people, and on brand even would be kind of nice. So that's something that you've got available to you. Email frequency by email group is a new insight report. Now you're probably thinking, well, hang on a minute, there are email frequency reports. Yes, there are, but now they're actually available by email group. So depending on your use of email groups within your organization, this can be really quite helpful because it's going to help you get a better take on a breakdown by email group versus at a higher level, because it could be highly likely that of a newsletter, so an email frequency, so email group associated to newsletters, well, maybe it's every fortnight or sorry, every 2 weeks or once a month or whatever it might be, which is very different to the cadence of communications you may send to people for events, for example. So it enables you to have a more apples for apples comparison versus kind of everybody being thrown into a single bucket when it comes to email frequency. So that should be fun to have a look at. The automated certificate management process is slowly working its way through all of the pods. Pods 3 and 4 are on the way, I think, from a controlled availability, it says there. You can find more information out about that. What that's doing, essentially, Eloqua is automating that whole process of SSL certificates, what you need. And the nice thing is there's no charge. It's not often you hear that, right? There's no charge, which is great. Something to, if you've got any questions about that, please feel free to contact us or speak to your Oracle account rep and they can assist you with that one. A few other things, if you're using the Oracle Eloqua SMS capability, Marketing Cube have an app as well that does SMS, but the Eloqua SMS functionality, they're enhancing functions constantly. Now folder management and segment filter updates are available, so you can use more information from a segmentation point of view to help you build segments and audiences, which is good. The Eloqua form application API, not overly stimulating, but essentially it just means if maybe you're sitting directly next to a colleague, or in fact, maybe your colleague's sitting at home or wherever they may be, or in an office across the country, and you both happen to simultaneously be in the same form within Eloqua, should one of you go to save while the other is making modifications, you will get an alert on screen to tell you and sort of give the option to either back away or to save a copy of. Saving a copy of is probably not the ideal suggestion, but at least you'll receive notification. In the past, things would just simply be saved over, which could have been a little bit confusing and cause issues. A much nicer solution, just FYI on that one. You probably will never see that alert, but just in case. The move to OCI, which is the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure System, where your pods are, so your physical instance of Eloqua sitting on a server. These new OCI data centers are state-of-the-art, and it's good. I mean, it's probably not the most exciting thing to hear about necessarily, but it's going to definitely pay dividends as we move forward over the next few years with the functionality and things that Oracle has in mind for us. So that's good news. And Oracle Cloud Accounts. Now, this one is really just for the administrators. And again, in that important update, if we know you're an administrator, we will have presented you, that's the use of dynamic content in newsletters. If we know you're an administrator, we will have actually provided with more information. If you're unclear, there is a product notice, and I would encourage you to go into Topliners, look under the Release Center, and find that information. Essentially, what Oracle is doing is for all of their cloud customers, of which Eloqua is one, they're creating cloud accounts and through their cloud portal. And that needs to be set up, and there are deadlines in place. In the middle of April, I think, is the first deadline. And so if you're an administrator of Eloqua, you need to wrap your head around that one. So yeah, please have a look in Topliners, or again, contact us if you need. more information. Now, there are loads of Salesforce app enhancements. We've expanded on some of those. Again, if we know you're using Salesforce, in the important update information as well. So something for you to look forward to there. What are we up to? Oh my gosh, the time has flown. All right. So next month, Wednesday, the 15th of March, same time, 9 a.m. Eastern, New York and Toronto, and afternoon for our friends in Europe, designing targeted experiences. And so we're going to take a lot of the content that we talked about today and then show you that in practice from the campaign canvas and how we can use the campaign canvas to sort of adjust the journey and moving to and fro. So please, if you wanted to save the date, just to get that in your diary at least, you can scan that on screen with your smartphone. But of course, you will receive confirmation from today or replay links from today and an invitation to register as well. So you get those Zoom links so you can join us live. So thank you very much for making some time to be with us today. So have a wonderful week. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My details are there on screen. Or of course, if you find us on LinkedIn, follow us on LinkedIn, you'll also see invitations and links for the user group there as well. So please feel free to engage. We'd love to have a chat. Thank you again and have a wonderful week, everybody.